President Trump looking to shake up the Democrats ahead of their big primary in New Hampshire. Trump getting ready to hold a rally in Manchester tonight before the 2020 contenders face off in the state tomorrow. Trump supporters lining up for hours to see the president, while Democrats are in a state of total dysfunction. They are still fighting over the results in Iowa, and now they're going after each other. Check out this back and forth between sinking Sleepy Joe and Mayor Pete.
And he's a good guy. He's a great mayor. But guess what? He was a mayor. He's a good guy. But the idea of passing a budget as mayor of a town the size of Manchester and managing $900 billion, you think this guy's not a Barack Obama?
Well, he's right. I'm not, and neither is he. Neither is any of us. And this isn't 2008. This is 2020.
Wow. And while candidates continue to tear each other apart, top liberals are warning that the field doesn't have what it takes to beat Trump.
The problem here is the Democratic Party. The idea of a political party is to win elections. That's all it's about. If you don't do that, you have done nothing. It's not to make a point. It's not to start a revolution. It's not to win an argument. It is to win the election. I have the idea of the Democratic Party that I read about and I see on television, and that is a bunch of people on Twitter running around causing trouble.
The other depressing thing about this week was, you know, at his best moment, the Democrats they just look like the gang who can't shoot straight or can't run straight. And if they can't get their act together soon, it's going to be over before it begins.
Wow, Greg, it looks like despair has set in on the Democratic Party. And you know what? You can't argue with them. Carville and Marr are right. I can't believe I just said that.
Well, you know, the thing is, you notice there's a strong sense of sadness in Bill Maher's voice. And I could feel bad for that. And I could feel bad for all the smart, cool kids like him and Sam Harris. But these people were warned, right? Every day for months on this show, we were saying, you're going to be in for a huge letdown if you don't start thinking about the future and stop putting all your eggs in the impeachment basket. Unless you divorce yourself from that emotional fantasy, you're going to end up, it's like a worse hangover than tequila. Because tequila doesn't cause you six
worse than
months
tequila.
of therapy.
I can't drink it.
Yeah, but I got to tell you, the only reason why they're sad is their filter is broken, right? Why do so many smart people, and Bill Maher is smart, and Sam Harris is smart, they keep stepping on the same rake, and it's the same rake. We keep saying, don't step on it. So you stepped on it with obstruction, you step on it with collusion, you step on it with Kavanaugh, you step on it with here. And we keep saying, you got to change your filter. The big point that I find I think the fact that you're sad is a selfish commentary because the country's doing really great.
Oh, that's a good point.
You're really, really great. But I feel sad, and it's like almost like your sadness, your emotional pain caused by Trump's personality is more valuable than a stronger, safer country. And I'd much rather be happier with a less competent, more warlike president because, you know, that makes me feel good. So there's an underlying selfishness behind these intellectuals that makes me want to laugh and watch them drown in their tears. And that's a joke. Drown in their tears.
Juan, to Greg's analogy, how does the rake taste? We warned you. I don't know why you don't listen to us.
I think you guys must know the taste of that dirt in the rake's teeth because, gee, I think half the country still wants this guy out of here. And I'm sitting in a state, New Hampshire. I'm just sitting in a state, New Hampshire, where I saw today was like plus 60% of the Democrats in the state say they'd rather have the state hit by a meteor than see Trump reelected.
Isn't that emotional, Juan, though? Isn't that an emotional point?
Oh, wait a second. I thought a minute ago the rake, they were being too emotional.
That's TDS.
Oh, I see.
Emotions.
Look, I think you guys, I'm so curious to see how you react to all this because, in fact, the reality is that the nominating process is always a messy process. And it's always like a roller coaster, and sometimes the roller coaster goes off the tracks, and sometimes you think Jeb Bush is going to be the nominee, and then it's Donald Trump, and then Trump is on tape saying awful things about grabbing women, and you think it's gone again. And look how it worked out for the Republicans. You got a Republican president. So we don't know where this is going, but once there's a nominee, I think the dynamic shifts, and you stop talking about that dysfunction. You start talking about Democrats coalescing behind a candidate. And at that point, then you start to see why Trump has never hit 50.
See, I
in
would
terms
agree
of
with you
approval.
on in a normal cycle, but I don't see the Democrats, Dana, coalescing behind anybody in this field who they nominate. How have you have you gone to a few diners and heard a similar opinion?
Well, I would tell you that the mood here definitely feels like there's some excitement, especially the Bernie Sanders rallies. Like, those people are in love. They follow him. They believe in him. He doesn't talk down to them. He's not condescending. He has always been who he is. Now, do I see the entire Democratic Party getting behind him to try to oust Donald Trump? I have to tell you, today I find that very hard to imagine. But if he became the nominee, maybe we would see something different. The other dynamic that's happening here is that President Trump's coming tonight. He's going to have his rally here in Manchester. And the arena where he'll be was the site of his last rally before the election here in the primary in New Hampshire, where he ran away with it. And I think he has a special affinity for New Hampshire because that was the kind of the first contest that said, okay, he could actually win this thing. He could be onto the White House. And so he'll be coming back tonight, and it will be packed. People have been staying up overnight. There are people come from different states in order to be here. So whatever he's done here, he has locked in his support. And I think that anyone who was independent in 2016 that voted for President Trump has probably switched their registration to Republican to vote for him this time. And he only lost this state by 0.4% in 2016. And I think that they think that they'll be able to win that in 2020. I shouldn't say I think they think. They think they can. I think they will.
Yeah, I think they will too. Katie, do you agree?
I think that President Trump may win New Hampshire, but going back to the chaos in the Democratic Party, I want to say that I agree with Juan in the sense that we do have a very long way to go here. But when it comes to momentum doesn't just apply to individual candidates, it applies to the party as a whole. And when you have the Iowa caucus vote still being in disarray, they still can't figure out whether all of the data and information was in the voting system, there's now this cloud over the entire primary process from the beginning about whether the person who may end up winning actually won it fairly. And that is certainly something that the Bernie camp will be thinking about when they go into this if he doesn't get the nomination, and whether they are going to then support the nominee against President Trump. But the Trump campaign has been on the ground all over the place, not just in New Hampshire. Vice President Mike Pence has been in New Hampshire today with Ivanka Trump at diners, meeting and shaking hands. And Democrats have had a very hard time catching up, not just on the ground, but on issues. And they're running out of things to run against the president on. In New Hampshire, he ran on dealing with the opioid crisis, and he has delivered on that. And I completely agree with Dana that people will see that issue, see what he has done, and decide to change the registration and vote for him.
Greg, when's the last time you were at a diner?
I actually frequent many diners. But that's weird. Are there other places beside diners? Aren't there restaurants?
No, just diners.
Just
Greg.
diners?
Just diners all over New Hampshire.
I think we need more man on the street interviews, Jesse.
Okay.
Go out there and see.
Well,
All right, I'm going to catch the next
what?
flight. Yeah.
Wait, Jesse,
Yes,
Jesse.
yes.
Chris Wallace and I and Chris's wife went to the Red Arrow Diner today, and they have plaques on the chairs where, like, Al Gore, Obama, even Mayor Pete sat. So,
What about you?
you guys
I thought they were
gotta
going to say
you
there was
gotta
a
get
plaque
up
for
here.
Waters World.
Hey, I'm saying we need a plaque for Jesse Waters right in the snow. You might have to wait in line outside
All right.
until I let you
All
in.
right, I'll check the temperature and I'll be right up. All right.